Lisa, now let me go to the next point here. Again, I remember his hand on the barrel of my gun. Now, you know better than I that this gun, and you know how this works, this AR rifle was in a sheath. It couldn't be torn away from his body, and he bought it purposely for that reason. He said so that he couldn't drop it when he was treating people, but it couldn't go from his body. If the barrel of the hand is on an AR in front of you, how does it get turned around, if at all, in that sheath to be turned against Kyle Rittenhouse?
Okay, so it's a sling, not a sheath. A sheath means that it's completely put away and zipped up. So on a sling that actually harnesses over his body, there is some slack, and the weapon rests in a particular way based on that slack. But because it's crossbody, the only way that it can get off is if it's taken out over your head. And in that position, and we've seen aerial footage with the FBI of the chase, the people who were in the proximity above the ground. We also even see the round going off, the actually firing of the weapon. So a lot of the things that Kyle is saying right now are corroborated through the video footage. So could he have pummeled him? Could he have beat him up? And you have an angry mob who is also there. Could he have been disarmed of that weapon? Absolutely. It's just a matter of pulling one arm, up in the air and pulling it over his head.
Best chance the prosecution now has, if they do a good job on cross-examination, to get some type of conviction here, because you do have Huber rushing in after Rosenbaum's been shot. There's a lot of people in the area. None of these Huber, Rosenbaum are armed with a gun. And it could be argued, and I'm sure the family believes and friends, that Huber, he was a savior. He was a hero. He was trying to go in and unarm a kid with an AR-15 in the middle of a crowd who just shot somebody. What are your thoughts?
If the prosecution presented exactly what you said, they'd have a leg to stand on to say why. They just heard a shooting, witnessed a shooting, they see him on the ground, and they want to do their best to disarm him. So those are great, opportunities for them to say that that was the intention of these two individuals, one who subsequently passed away and the other one who had his arm obliterated. But that was never brought forward. And now we have the perspective coming from Kyle on why he did what he did. And yes, on face value, it looks like it could go both ways. They were trying to save other people from getting shot, and they didn't know the scenario that happened with Rosenbaum being potentially a justified shoot.
Yeah. Okay. Lisa Lockwood, the prosecution neglected to get the actual certified order that established a curfew that night. Hence, the prosecution rested, defense made a motion for dismissal, and the judge granted. It seems to have been another misstep. But here, the prosecution is talking about the curfew again. Why is it relevant that a 17-year-old was out on the street with an AR-15 that night in violation of a curfew, even though it may not be a count that was charged?
Why is it a violation, or why do
you think it's relevant?
It up?
Why do you think he's bringing it up in cross-examination?
Just to show his the fact that he's a teenager and not an adult. He's considered an adolescent at 17 years old, and also maybe going to what is the mind and thought process of somebody who is not a legal adult, and the fact that he is willing to break another law, something that did not apply to him, not having a weapon that wasn't registered to him, not having an FOID card, an authorization from the government to actually have that weapon, and then also violating an order. And he said later on, he got the text, he knew there was a curfew, and just didn't feel it applied to him.
Okay, so Lisa Lockwood, one of the things that you and I also talked about before we go to the cross-examine on this is at one point when he was dealing with Gaige Grosskreutz, Gaige Grosskreutz had said that Kyle Rittenhouse had re-racked his gun. If the prosecution took the videotape that we all watched and had like NASA bring it up to hear sound, could you hear a re-racking of an AR-15 before the gun is pointed by Grosskreutz or not?
You absolutely can if you're in close proximity to it, because it's metal on metal, and you're actually you're charging the weapon, which is putting a bullet around into the chamber to get ready to fire. And he even said there was no reason to do that because it was ready to go. And as an AR-15, it's ready to shoot. And we know that you don't have to re-rack it. When he shot Rosenberg 4 times, they're simultaneous shots. Yeah. So unless it was empty, or if the weapon had a malfunction, then you would need to rack it. But you would hear that.